Hi, this is Erin, and welcome to Everything EFL, my little podcast about English language teaching and other teachy stuff too. Credit and honourable mentions will be given during the episode or in the show notes. Let's crack on. Hello, you gorgeous teacher. If you are a new listener, you are most welcome. And if you're one of my lovely regular listeners, welcome back. Joining me this week is somebody who joined me on episode 36. She talked about challenging the historical narrative in your classroom. It was very informative and educational. It's also on IGTV if you want to have a look. Some things have changed in her life. She's recently moved to Colombia and she has been spreading her special brand of positivity, compassion and kindness. And how do I know this? Because she is a freaking boss. Ladies and gentlemen, Anjalee Beverly. She is back. Hi, Anjalee.
Hi, Erin. How are you?
I'm good. Lovely to see you again.
First off, I love the introduction. That is, I love it. She is a boss. I love it. I love it. It is so nice to see you again, and I appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. We've been trying to schedule this forever, haven't we?
Literally months.
Okay, we'll have a little chat about that later if you like, all the big changes going on. But just for anybody who, for some reason, hasn't listened to episode 36, how would you describe your career now?
Well, now I live in a different country and I am teaching at a brand new school, and as opposed to being a 10-year vet at one school, which is what I was doing before, I'm now almost like a first-year teacher because I'm brand new country. Oh wait, she's about to squeak her toy.
It's okay.
Erin.
So we're dog friendly on this podcast.
Okay. Everyone, I have a little puppy Chihuahua. I brought her with me to Colombia, and for whatever reason, as soon as I'm about to start doing a live, she gets a specific toy and squeaks it. So if you hear her squeaking it, just know that there's three company here. There's me, there's Nala, and there's Erin.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yes, because she's squeaking it. I don't even know if you could catch it, but I hear it. Long story short, I'm enjoying the newness of being an educator in a new school. I am not the expert at this place. I'm an expert maybe in PBL. I might be an expert in classroom management and community building, but I'm still learning the students. I'm learning the school. I'm learning how to navigate different things in new curriculum. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm in a place of humility because I'm learning so much. While also yet knowing a lot. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and humility is a good word. I mean, you never stop learning. You could teach for 50 years. You can always learn something new, even if you're in the same place. Like, that's just kind of a matter of course, isn't it?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's a big reason why I chose I was like, if I'm going to leave this school, I've been at it for a very long time, I need to go big or go home. Like, I need to go big. And big was teaching abroad. And so I'm teaching abroad now in Cartagena, Colombia. And there's so many changes and so much newness. So there's a lot of humility in many aspects.
Fantastic, though. And kudos to you for making the move. I mean, it's not for everyone. And a lot of people, I think, would have a fear of that. But again, it's about pushing yourself forward. I'm all about pushing myself forward at the moment. And, I mean, it's easier said than done sometimes, especially in the EFL industry, because, a lot of schools don't offer good conditions. But when you are going to make a change, you really have to try and make sure you're making a step up and going to somewhere that will treat you better, or you will give you more opportunities or something like that, I think.
I think that's a great way of looking at it. However, sometimes when you're going overseas, you don't really know what they're going to offer. So my step up in this instance was being in a full Spanish immersion experience. Like, that was my step up, because everything else, I had it really good where I was. I'll say that.
That's good. But anyway, we're already completely off topic. The reason I brought you on here is because we had a discussion before a long time ago now about community building, and I know this is something you're passionate about and I'm passionate about, and I think it's something that we don't talk about in the EFL sector as much. Like, it's very much in the mainstream education kind of sector, but not so much within EFL. And I don't really understand that, because you're still dealing with a bunch of students who need to get to know each other and feel safe, and have that kind of safety net to open up and then speak. And I'm naming this episode after something that you said to me a long time ago, and that's when trust is built, learning can happen. And that really struck a chord with me. So maybe we should start with what community building actually is.
So community building is creating an environment where students feel safe, teachers feel safe to share, to be free, to make mistakes. And it's a time, I think it's a time when the classroom shifts from being, these are my peers, or this is the person I'm sitting next to, this is my forced partner, to we're actually in this learning together. We're in the growing together. We are, it's like, I feel like it's like a synergistic, students start to realize the synergy that they have together and the role that I play in it. And so, like, we all just are stakeholders in each other's development and happiness and the learning process. So that's how I would define community building. And that takes time to get to a point of vulnerability and trust.
Yeah.
And losing the label of my partner, but this is like, we're in this together.
Yeah. And I think that can be really tough. I mean, everything's a process. This is like my mantra for this year. Everything in life is a process, and this is too. It can be very tough, especially if you're dealing with cultures who see the teacher as the font of knowledge and the be all and end all of the lesson. Like, I think sometimes students don't realize they can look around the classroom and they can learn from everybody in there. And that takes time as well.
Yes. That gets developed in my class very quickly. I purposely will make mistakes. At the beginning of the year, I focus strongly on growth mindset. And I'm encouraging my students to learn from their mistakes, to fail forward. And so to encourage them, I make a lot of mistakes. I hope that they never hear this, but I purposely make certain mistakes that I know are mistakes just to get them to be like, it's okay. I'm okay, you guys. I made this mistake and I've learned from it. And now I'm better and it's all right. And once they realize, oh, Miss Beverly made a mistake, like, it's okay for me to make a mistake. Or I might make a mistake and say, how do you all fix it? How would you fix it? And then now we have student voice coming in, sharing how they would fix the teacher's mistake.
Oh, I love that. That's so simple. And, you know, you're getting them to think critically. They're seeing you as a human. Can you give me some examples of the kind of quote unquote mistakes you make?
Well, I mean, it's things that teachers probably have been doing for time and time again, but we may write a sentence, right? And you may forget the A or the, you may forget your period. And then you just keep on teaching. This is a perfect sentence, right, everyone? This is a complete sentence. Look at my complete sentence. No, Miss Beverly, no, you forgot a period. You didn't capitalize, you know, then it could become as simple as that, depending on your age group, right? Or it could be you're doing long division and you forget to bring down the next step, or bring down the next number. All right, folks, we're done, right? We're done. The vision is done. Let's go on to the next one. Someone raises their hand, Miss Beverly, you forgot to bring down the next number. We're not done. How did you know that? And then they explain to the class. And then I emphasize, see everyone, like, we can make mistakes, especially if we're moving too fast. It's very important we take our time. And look at that. We have someone in the class who was paying attention and was able to catch my mistake.
Yeah, I think I can safely say I would not catch that mistake in your long division. Maths is probably the worst thing in the world. Actually, physics and then maths, but I would not have.
No. Math is so fun. I really think sometimes it could depend on the teacher. It also depends on like how your parents worked with you in math. But no, math is amazing. Everyone, do not listen to Erin. Math is amazing.
Yes, miss. It's a mental block for sure. It's a mental block for sure.
I agree.
Okay, brilliant. So what sort of activities are your favorites for community building, and would there be any particular point that you would do them?
Good. That's a great question. So I think it's really crucial to begin your first 2 weeks of school. And I think a lot of teachers, I would say, that I've worked with, we know that the first 2 weeks of school are your holy grail. It's a sacred time to get to know your students, for them to get to know you. But I've also met teachers who use that time just to assess. So letting you know now, your first 2 weeks of school are for community building, not just procedures, but community building. That first 2 weeks are so crucial. Within your first 2 weeks of school, it's super important to build classroom agreements. That's number one. Not rules that you made and that you post on the wall and you tell the students to follow. No. You have to have buy-in. And the way that you have buy-in is you ask the students to create them with you. And another thing is use the term agreements. Words have power. When we say agreements, we are stating that everyone agrees.
Yeah.
How I do this is I will put students in pairs, or actually, first I let students individually write, I give them a Post-it, write 3 to 4 rules or classroom agreements that you think everyone should follow. Now I want you to get into pairs, share your 3 to 4 agreements with your partner, and choose 2 that you think were super important that we definitely need to agree with. Now get into a group of 4 and choose 2 to 4 that you really think, so everyone shares, that you really think the class should be agreeing with. So now we have collaboration, we have students sharing, you have students practicing using the English language. There's so much happening here. They're critical thinking about the way the classroom communities should be. And then at the end, I take what they've included, I type it all up, show it to them, and then we kind of vote on it. Then I print it out, put a little thing at the bottom for them to sign, and they've signed off on the classroom agreements that they created. I don't create any of it, none of it. I guide them. I might put it in not adult, but I might put it in language that might be not as 4th gradery. I know that's not a word.
Yes, it is.
I might put it in nicer language than they may, but they create them on their own completely. So if someone falls out of alignment, remember the agreement that you all created? Remember what you signed on? So that's my first.
Great. There's so much engagement as well, complete engagement, and it shows that you value them. And there's democracy. What more can you ask for? The only issue I can see with this is if you're in what I would call a mainstream school, perfect. If you're in a language school, you may get rolling enrollments, which would make it a little bit more complicated, I think. But I'm sure anybody listening, teachers, this is the thing about teaching. You take an idea and you adapt it to your students. You know them best, you know how things work the best, so you can take that idea and tweak it and make it work somehow, I think.
And yeah, if I understand what you're saying by rolling enrollments, it happens, I feel like, in almost every school, but you can also ask that student to add to it when they arrive.
Yeah.
This is what recreated, what would you like to add to it?
Yeah, have an existing document. Yeah.
Yes, what can you add to it? So mine is not only a Google Doc that stays on our Google Classroom, but it's also posted on the wall, which was handwritten, which could easily be added to.
There you go, kids. The work's been done for you. So what's next after the classroom agreements? What happens next?
After classroom agreements, I personally create a classroom affirmation. And this is something that I actually created. And let me be clear. My colleague, who we all sometimes have teacher besties, he's my teacher bestie. I walked in his room and he had what was called a growth mindset affirmation. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. Oh my goodness, can I steal it? And he was like, yeah, sure. So I looked at it, some of the language I liked, some of the language I was like, it's not gonna resonate. So I tweaked it a bit so that it would fit the type of classroom environment I wanted and the way I wanted the day to start for my students. And I just wrote it out, typed it up, put it on the Google Classroom, and then I also hand wrote it with marker to hang on the wall for all my students to see. I started the year off introducing classroom agreements, and my students start off with every single morning, standing up. I am smart. I am a hard worker. I can do hard things. I try new things every day. I learn from my mistakes. When I struggle, I grow. My brain can stretch. Oh, I said stretch so long, I forgot the next part.
Getting so into it. So into it.
It's literally stretch. And we show how elastic the brain, I have them stretch out their arms to mimic how elastic the brain is as we learn new things, as new neurons are created when we make connections. And I struggle like, girl, my brain can stretch.
You're so in the moment, you forgot.
Yeah, and it's like, and I never give up, and I never give up, and I never give up because I get better every day.
Love
and
it.
This starts off the morning. I've been doing this now for 5 years in my classroom. I've always been doing affirmations, but this particular one has been for 5 years. And I brought it here to my school in Cartagena. And oh my gosh, these students, it really sets the tone for the day. One voice, we're all saying it together as one voice. A class, a different student each day leads it. And I believe that this supports with classroom community because we are creating a culture of growth mindset. We're not just talking about building community, but we're creating culture now, a culture where mistakes are okay, a culture where we know that we're improving, and we know that our brain is going to stretch, especially when you're doing math and it might feel a little tough. We're stretching.
Yeah. So much to say. Setting the tone, that's so important. Like I would imagine that in a lot of EFL classrooms, we do what's called a warmer, and it's usually a 5-minute activity, and it's usually something that would create a little bit of laughter or just kind of break the ice. And but actually that affirmation, it's such a nice way of setting the tone, because they're that growth mindset, confidence, anything like that, again, going back to that word process, you need to work on it every single day.
Yes.
Adults, even if you're like the most successful adult in the world, like RuPaul, like if you've listened to my podcast, I'm obsessed with RuPaul, everyone. He says it himself. It's you have to work on it every single day. Otherwise those voices start coming back. And to do it at such a young age is brilliant. I'm thinking, like, because primarily my students are adults, I'm just trying to think how this would work with them. Obviously we'd have to change the language, but I mean,
yes.
And again, because they're adults, maybe they could create it themselves.
Create their own. Yeah. And so that's another thing. So in addition to me introducing my class affirmation, I ask students to create their own affirmation. This also happens in the first 2 weeks of school. They create a 1-word affirmation. I give them cute they start on a Post-it, then I give them this cute little paper, and then I hang them up on the front board. We have like a front board where we all look at it during the day. And so they get to every morning look at their own personal affirmation that they created.
Yeah.
If this were adults, you could put them all together, and people can just look at each of their own every morning or every day when you meet, without repeating it necessarily in unison. But everyone right now, take a moment to look at your affirmation, say it to yourself, and maybe share out how is it resonating with you right now.
Yeah. I love that. And also, like, I'm not big on pushing students outside their comfort zone too much, because I think there's a risk of them shutting down. But this is a nice way of getting them to step outside their comfort zone, just in terms of it's okay to think bigger. It's okay, like, to just say good, nice things to yourself. It's like a nice way of doing it, and it's not too pressurized. You're not making them do something they want to do. You're just trying to persuade them to think in a more positive way and use positive language towards themselves.
Very true. And it's so funny. It's what you just said. It reminds me that my students are often, just like we do, thinking negative things about themselves. And it just makes me so sad that these little sweethearts are thinking that way, because I know that they are. And this is a shift to remind them, like you said, to think positive and say nice things to yourself.
Yeah.
And that an adult in your life affirming it for you.
Exactly. Brilliant. Love it. What's next? Dying to know.
So next up is community circles.
Ooh.
Community circles. People, I think, might call them different things, but you're welcome to call it whatever you want, really. But the common name here is a community circle, and that's typically at the end of the day, or you can call it a closing circle. And at the end of the day, it's kind of a recap of how students, like a check-in, maybe more of a check-in of how are you feeling. You can have some questions, and what I have are 6 questions, and I tell them to choose whichever question you want to share with the class. Like, what did you enjoy most about the day? What's a compliment you like to give someone in the class? Where is a time? Share a time where you pushed yourself at something that was difficult today.
Love it.
I can't even, there's 6 of them, but those are the 3 I can think of at the top of my head. And those are often the 3 that are most shared. But this is a community circle where students get to freely share. You don't even have to provide guiding questions. I give the guiding questions because I work with English language learners, and sometimes they need the extra push and they need a sentence stem, a sentence frame to support what they're about to say. So usually those guiding questions help with that. But you also can have an open. I have a talking piece. Well, actually, since the pandemic, we haven't had a talking piece, but a talking piece is usually something that the students hold to represent, this is the person who's speaking. Mm-hmm. Now we're not holding things and passing them, but, but it's usually this understanding that when this person has this piece, they're speaking and they're answering this question or they're sharing this thing. And it could be as simple as share one thing you enjoyed about your weekend. Share about a time when you felt sad and then you overcame it. It's what now people are calling it socio-emotional learning, but really it's just a time to have open and vulnerable dialogue with your class. And it builds community and it builds a culture of trust because students are opening up about their personal self to their teacher, to their classmates, and people get to see that, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who experiences these things.
Yeah, that's so important, because I think also, again, with negative thoughts, like it sometimes feels like, especially when you're young and you're not emotionally developed, you don't realize everyone else is thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Exactly. And I'm just so glad you're reminding me of this, because I just can imagine the things that my students are thinking sometimes, and how throughout the day, folks, we have to constantly be reshifting their thinking. The same way we have to do it, we are a model for them, just a model to reshift their thinking. And right now I have 20 students, which is the least I've ever had. But when we're doing certain assignments, I can see the frustration on some faces. And this is that part where the affirmation comes in, or where an encouraging word comes in to remind students, it's okay. This is where mistakes are okay.
Yeah. I really like, I would call this reflection. It's the same principle, isn't it? Kind of, you're kind of analyzing and evaluating, but then with just that shared aspect of it. I really like that. I think depending on do you give your students time to prepare what they're going to say? Because depending on like the culture and nationality, certain nationalities would definitely need time to prepare.
Yes. So because I work at a school where I've always only worked with English language learners where English is not the A1 language. So I always give what is called think, pair, share. So you get to think, and then you find your pair, and then you share.
So it's not open class.
Open class, like
as in they're talking to everyone. They're just talking to a pair, like a partner.
You get to talk with your partner first. So
okay.
It's usually always talk with the partner first, and then we do open share, because some students don't like to open share. Yeah. I was a student that does not like to open share. The idea of open sharing made me sweat bullets, like literally. Yeah. And I still feel that way.
Because you weren't ready for it. And I was going to ask, is it voluntary? I think that's essential. Again, like you cannot push a student before they're ready.
Yeah, not even I feel like for me, it wasn't even about being ready. My personality, and still today, I just feel like being put on the spot makes me feel so nervous. And while they're thinking, I also put the sentence frame on the board. So everyone, this is your sentence frame. You can look at it. And then some student will say, can we start it off differently? Sure. You don't have to use the sentence frame. And so then we have students who want to use the sentence frame or not. They do it with their pair. And then I'll say, okay, is there anyone who would like to share out what you and your partner talked about? And then it becomes volunteer.
And the fact that your students are actually saying, can we use something different, is amazing as well, because, you know, if you don't have that trust and community, your students won't feel comfortable asking. They just accept the sentence frame and go, this is the only choice I have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, again, that comes in that first 2 weeks, the making mistakes, the valuing student voice. I remember when I was doing my credential program, would have to be observed, and my mentor would say, you're talking too much. That was always her feedback. Let your students talk more. Allow your students, like if you have a slide, do you need to read the slide? Have your students do it. And those are examples of how student voice gets valued in the classroom. Again, building community building and building a culture of trust in the classroom.
Yeah. Oh, so much good information. This is going to be hard for me to edit because everything you're saying is just gold.
Don't edit anything, just keep it all in.
I'll try and cut out the little squeaks that Nala's making, but apart from that.
Well, I only have a couple more that I think I don't want to bombard with too much information, because I think we can there's no point in trying to tackle everything. Choose one thing, get good at it. But the other thing I want to talk about are surveys. Do surveys and do them frequently.
Ooh,
at the beginning of the year. At the beginning of the year, I do getting to know my student survey, and I do it on Google Docs, because Google Forms. In the beginning, before Google became a thing, it was on paper, but Google Forms aggregates it in a way so you could easily see student information. Ask them what their favorite foods are, their favorite color, ask them how they like to be awarded. Ask them if there's certain holidays they do not celebrate. Ask them, awarded or praised. Like, ask them how they like to be awarded or praised. Some people will simply say, please just call my family and tell them. Ask students questions like, how would you want to learn this, or this, or what's something you need more support with? How do you like to be supported? And sometimes they can't answer them, but then you also find sometimes they can, and you learn wonderful things about your students. In addition to getting to know them through them, survey their parents. Ooh. All this is happening that first 2 weeks of school. You're asking parents, tell me something, or what would you like me to know about your child? What are their strengths? What do they need support in? What feedback would you like to give me? How would you like me to communicate with you? The surveys in the beginning of the year, and also do it after the first marking period or the first grading period. Do it again with the parents, and then with the students. Ask them, how did the first trimester go? What do you feel you learned? How can I support you more? This is giving student voice. It lets them feel valued, and you're doing it frequently, that they're used to it. They know that their voice is valued, and you use what they tell you to inform your instruction. Not just let it sit there on Google Forms, but literally look at it and take notes and let it inform how you're going to come back into the next trimester, how you're going to come back to support them and talk about it. A lot of people said this, so we're going to start doing this now. A lot of people told me this, so now I'm going to make sure I spend more time on math.
Yeah.
Survey requests.
I think that's like a really important part of it, is talking about it. Like on Friday, I've just got a very small class. And on Friday, I actually did just a small one on Jamboard. I left them to it. And I just said, what did you learn this week? What do you want more of next week? What do you want less of next week? And I got some really interesting answers. Like I went a little bit too lexical last week, and it kind of overshadowed everything else. It was kind of, and they said, less vocabulary, not fine. And then they said more silence, which I've never heard before. And I'm so intrigued to discuss it with them. I'm so like on Monday, I'm going to like say, right, you said that, what do you mean by this? Like, this is really interesting. And I'm really excited to actually discuss that concept with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And tell them how I'm going to change things. Yeah, exactly. Because I think, again, it makes them part of the process, doesn't it?
Exactly. And when you do it whole class, when you're sharing their feedback, you're sharing that you value them, and it builds community.
So, Anjalee, I'm going to ask you for one final one, and then, we can always do a part 2 at some point in the future, because I feel like you've got like a million more ideas running around your head.
All right. So the final thing, I'm going to combine it into 2. I call it collective breath. And what we do is, after lunch, students would come in and they're very rowdy and they're very loud, and it's difficult to refocus them back to, and it was always math after recess. And so to refocus them, I would call it, first it was called 2-minute quiet. And in the 2-minute quiet, students would just put their head down, but we would sit literally in silence. And then I was like, this is not as effective as I would like it to be. So I was like, you know what, this is going to be collective breath. And we'll use this 2 minutes to breathe deeply. And it would be just, it started off with, I have this little ball and it expands, and it would be inhale and exhale. And in the beginning, everyone thought it was so weird. And then I started explaining, I use my really soft voice. Everyone, when the ball expands, this is our lungs expanding. Everyone expand your lungs. Inhale. When the ball gets smaller, we're exhaling. I want to hear all of our breath. Let me actually hear you breathing out, right? And first, everyone's all weird. By the end of the year, you could hear them, like you hear them fluttering their mouths. You could hear the air coming out. And it's this collective breathing that we were doing, which, yes, to me is community building, because again, we're now collectively breathing, we're calming down together, we're focusing on our breath, and I'm telling them how much our brain relies on our oxygen and how we have to give it new oxygen, and they're just all hyped and excited about it. It eventually evolved, so it went from 2-minute quiet to collective breath to be doing sun salutations. Inhale, arms up, exhale, hands to heart center. Now we're doing a movement together and breathing together. Okay, ready, class, sit down, take out your math book.
I love it. And what a skill to have at such a young age. Like, you know, I commented, did I comment? Oh no, it was, do you know Teacher Man on Instagram?
I don't, it doesn't sound familiar.
He's a maths teacher. He's African-American guy. And he posts like content all the time, but he said something about breathing and in school and stuff. And I commented and I said, I think someone came up with the suggestion of using breathing to, instead of punishing, use breathing to calm the person down. And I said, well, you know, we use breathing to help anxiety, so I don't see why it wouldn't work with other strong emotions. And if you can instill into your students that, you know, if you are experiencing any kind of strong emotion, especially a negative one,
yes,
that can manifest itself in such an unhealthy way. But if you can learn how to initially react with a breath, imagine the difference that could make to that person. And I'm getting a bit deep here. I'm definitely turning into more of a hippie as I get older, but like that is such, like, just to carry that through your life into so many different situations is everything.
Yes, like I said, it evolved. It went from just 2-minute quiet to calm them down. And then as I got my yoga certification, I realized the power of the breath and had to bring it also back to the classroom. And the breathing really made a difference in them in the day. And they would always say, oh, I feel so relaxed now. I've cooled down, because they all came in hot and sweaty from recess. I feel so cool now. And they would all kind of, like, without prompting, just share how they feel after that breath. And then I knew that it was working. So
yeah,
some of my ideas may be unconventional, but these are definitely ways in which I'm a 13-year educator, folks. This is my 13th year in education. It took a lot of trial and error, a lot of failing forward to know what works in a classroom, what really makes impacts on children, children's learning and children's hearts. And these are some of the things that I think have really made an impact, and why to this day, I still have relationships with my former students because of these things.
And I would argue that this isn't just for kids. You know, like I said, guys, take these ideas and adapt them to your culture, to your age group, to the way you know your students work and think. Teaching is trial and error. You know, I mean, how many times have you tried something new in a classroom and it's gone absolutely perfectly? It doesn't. You reflect, you refine, you change it for different classes. And I don't think any of this sounds like out there. I think everything you've said to me is perfectly common sense. And again, going back to the breathing thing, breathing can bring that sort of feeling of peace, which I don't think a lot of people have. So again, like, if you can instill that in them, it can make so much difference.
Yes, I feel like I don't do that here in Cartagena, the breathing as frequently as I used to. And it's making me realize I probably should start doing it more frequently, because it makes such a difference. It really does. Even for the educator, even the teacher in the room, like sometimes you just need that breath.
Absolutely. I don't see why it wouldn't be good for the teacher as well. Like, especially after lunch, you've got that carb coma going on. Oh God, I've got another 3 hours to go. You know? So what are you doing on social media? You're very active. And where can people connect with you, more importantly?
You can find me on Instagram. My name is Miss Cleverly Beverly, but there are some dots in there. So miss.cleverly.beverly. That is my IG handle. It's also my website, which is Miss Cleverly Beverly, no dots. You can find me also on Pinterest, and there's a YouTube coming soon of all of my international teaching adventures. So yeah, go ahead, check out my website. There's a blog. My blog is on the website, and you can find me on Instagram and Pinterest.
Thank you so much. I always just sorry.
And teachers pay teachers. I forgot about that.
Teachers pay, yes, you've got a prolific set of materials on Teachers Pay Teachers. But I mean, just check out her Instagram, and everything's on your link tree in your bio, isn't it?
Yes.
So yeah, once again, thank you so much for your insight, for your knowledge. Every time I talk to you, I feel like I've really learned something, and I love our chats, and I just wish we could have more of them. I really do. But for the moment, I'm going to say goodbye, but I feel like we will definitely do another episode about something at some point, because I adore talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Okay, everyone, thank you for listening. What can I say? Follow me if you don't already, subscribe if you don't already, and most importantly, look after yourself. Have a good week. This is my challenge to you. Don't just listen to this podcast. Take at least one thing from this episode and go back to your lesson plan for your next lesson for the week or for the day. See if you can put something from this episode into your lesson plan. And I'd love to hear how it went. I love hearing from teachers. DM me on Instagram. I'm always happy to talk to you. I love making connections. It's one of the nicest parts of the Instagram community, just making those connections and speaking to other teachers. It's amazing. So yes. Okay. I'm done. You're done. Share the love, everyone. Bye.